This is 61-year-old Douglas Harless, who lived in his home at 511 Van Zant Avenue in London, Kentucky for over 8 years. And this is 49-year-old Hobart Buttery, who was accused of stealing a weed whacker from a local county official. When the cops finally caught up with him, he told them that the missing weed whacker was in the house he used to live in at 515 Van Zant Road.
I told them on Van Zant Road there was a weed eater there.
Unfortunately, around 4 hours later, those same cops showed up not at 515 Van Zant Road, but at Mr. Harless's house at 511 Van Zant Road. And unbelievably, they thought they were at 489 Van Zant Road, a completely different house.
489 Van Zant Road. Units on scene can serve search warrant.
And they went to the wrong address, is what that was.
A neighbor's surveillance footage shows the cops arriving to Mr. Harless's home at 511 Van Zant Road. It was dark. They knocked on the door. They spread out in the guy's yard. They all got into position. And next thing you know, 5 shots are fired. Mr. Harless is dead. But there are big problems here because the surveillance footage and their story does not match up. The dispatch audio in their story does not match up. Let's go through it.
Shots fired. 489 Van Zant Road. They have EMS going for the perpetrator who's been hit.
A fatal police shooting in Laurel County, Kentucky last week happened at a different address than where police obtained their search warrant. So the shooting happened at 511 Van Zant Road. But according to police dispatch audio and the call log showing the police activity that night, the officers intended to go to a different house about 250 feet away. London, Kentucky police were trying to serve the search warrant on Monday, December 23rd, late at night, according to the Kentucky State Police. Douglas Harless, I've seen him listed as 61, also age 63. He was in his early 60s, we know that. Police admit that they shot and killed him, they say, when he pointed a gun at police officers. But dispatch audio indicates that they had a warrant for 489 Van Zant Road.
489 Van Zant Road. Units on scene can serve search warrant.
Which was a completely different home than Harless lived in where the shooting occurred. A media outlet, WKYT, obtained security footage from a neighbor that showed the police announcing themselves while banging on the door of 511 Van Zant Road, then surrounding it and eventually firing about 5 shots. Officers in the dispatch audio at least 5 times requested EMS and additional officers for the address of 489 Van Zant Road.
489 Van Zant Road. 489 Van Zant Road.
Van Zant Road, stand by in the area, shots fired.
Where they go?
They were at 489 Van Zant Road, serving a search warrant.
Which is not the address where police shot Mr. Harless. The crazy thing here is that the police did not reveal this. They have not yet even admitted that they showed up at the wrong address and shot somebody who was completely innocent. It was basically just the media putting that together after doing open records request and listening to the audio and also looking at the neighbor's surveillance footage. And when you look at the neighbor's surveillance footage, I think you can tell that the cops immediately realized, after they shot him, of course, that they had screwed up. We've all seen on the police videos, what is the first thing that they do when there's an officer-involved shooting? I mean, they have radios on their person. The first thing that they do is tell dispatch, shots fired, shots fired. Immediately, always. That is the first thing that they do. Is that what these officers did here? We can see on the timestamp of the surveillance footage exactly where the shots were fired, or exactly when the shots were fired. 11:51 p.m. Then after the shooting, the officers apparently have not called it in. They instead sort of regroup and they have this sort of huddle in this poor guy's yard as if to get their facts straight before they even call dispatch. It seems to be several minutes later that they actually report it to dispatch.
Van Zant Road, stand by in the area, shots fired.
Where they go?
They were at 49 Van Zant Road serving a search warrant.
Why did they wait?
I hate to say this, but it wouldn't never come to that if it wasn't whose stuff it was.
So they only had this guy in custody for a couple of hours, and already 2 days before Christmas at night, like it's an emergency, like there's a captive child in the residence, they arrive with all these officers in force, guns drawn, with rifles at the ready to execute a search warrant regarding the theft of a Weedeater. It could have something to do with the fact that this missing property belonged to this guy named David Westerfield. Now, David Westerfield is the Laurel County Judge Executive, whatever that is. Westerfield admitted to the news media that these items were stolen out of a garage that was being rented out to another man. Now, Westerfield said that he didn't know who Buttery was prior to the incident. Westerfield offered his condolences to the Harless family, but he said, "I don't have the authority as judge executive to sign a warrant and did not ask anyone to execute a warrant." So far, they have not released the search warrant for us to review, and they have not released whatever body cam footage was available, and they have not released the other footage that they found, I believe, from Mr. Harless's residence. The Kentucky State Police is conducting the investigation here, and so far the public has been kept in the dark. Again, they have not admitted that they showed up to the wrong residence. They have not admitted that Mr. Harless was an innocent victim here of them showing up to the wrong residence. They're still maintaining the front that this was some legitimate officer-involved shooting. So we can wait until this additional footage is released to really review the shooting itself, but just generally, an officer may use deadly force when he has probable cause to believe that a suspect poses a threat of serious physical harm either to the officer or to others, or that he has committed a crime involving the infliction or threatened infliction of serious physical harm, and has given some warning about the possible use of deadly force if feasible. That's from Tennessee versus Garner, U.S. Supreme Court. From the short bit of footage that we do have already, you can hear the police initially sort of knock and announce their presence or attempt to, and you can hear the shots being fired. And immediately prior to the shots being fired, what we do not hear is any warning being given. In fact, it looks like the officer who fired sort of made a split-second decision as he's falling down backwards to fire. Now, maybe that's not the officer who fired. We'll just have to wait for additional footage to really evaluate the shooting. But so far, based on what I see already, even wrong address aside, it doesn't look good. And as far as the address goes, you can plug into Google Maps or whatever you want to use right now, these addresses, and they pop up absolutely correctly. I don't see any excuse here that would be reasonable for them to get the wrong address. Now, maybe there's something in the paperwork that we haven't seen. And this is the reason why we have a warrant requirement in the first place, so that there's some neutral party in between. Because when cops show up on your property armed with guns, things like this can happen because the government is incompetent, because mistakes are made. And here, there are all sorts of problems and issues and questions that need to be answered. And hopefully we can answer those in the future and get justice for Mr. Harless. And you can help by sharing this footage and keeping the pressure on both the Kentucky State Police and also the London, Kentucky Police Department. Remember, our rights don't end where your fear begins. Freedom is scary. Deal with it.